Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm here with Sabine Schwirtz, who is with us today, formerly working with Lush and now in the cannabis industry. Thanks for being with me here today.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to chat with you today.
So much to talk about.
We're going to talk about market research from social media perspective today, but first, maybe let's get a little bit of understanding of, 30 seconds of your experience working in social media marketing.
Yeah, I have a really unique experience because I've actually only ever worked in spaces where social advertising is not an option. So Lush doesn't do any social ads, but in cannabis, no social media platforms will actually accept our money.
Yeah.
So I have a really unique experience just working in organic, which is just a whole different world because you just can't pay for views, you can't pay for impressions. So understanding your audience is a little bit different, understanding what your goals are is a little bit different. So It's been a wild ride.
So in cannabis, you can't advertise.
You can, but in really specific markets, not on social media at all.
Yeah.
So it's usually like private ad placements.
So it's kind of like cigarette advertising.
Very similar. Yeah. Cigarettes, liquor, same vibes.
Yeah.
Even though liquor, I think, is on social now too.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. So let's talk about market research. So why would someone engage in social media market research versus like the traditional focus groups or surveys or whatever it is?
I think the biggest survey focus group people is definitely Nielsen, and I love Nielsen. I think they're great. They give lots of data, but at the end of the day, like, I'm not filling out these surveys. No one I know is. So I just don't 100% trust those data sets anymore, or at least I know on social the data sets are huge. Like, if you have an analytics platform or a listening platform, you're working with an agency to provide that data, you're potentially getting like millions and millions of individual users and being able to distill that information. Additionally, I find the biggest kind of like aha moment for why you would want to do social media market research is the nuances of interest are just more robust. So if I'm filling out a survey, you only have the answers that someone answers and things can get missed.
Yeah.
But on social, all of your information is there. Like, you can tell what types of things I like, what I don't like, who I'm engaging with. And like, some platforms are really insane where they'll actually tell you like sentiment of different users. So depending on which program you're working with, you have like this option to just do so much work.
So I guess, so what you're saying is this, it's not, so in traditional marketing, they're like asking a question and they're getting an answer.
Yes.
Where in social media, you're saying is, you're not even being asked. Information is being gathered about you every moment.
All of the time. It's a little creepy.
It is. There's some controversy around this.
Lots of drama. I think it's interesting in the cannabis space. I just learned that advertisers obviously track your phone, and that's how they kind of tell whether or not you're of legal age, is they tell whether or not you go into a cannabis retailer or dispensary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's
by
like
geolocation.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
It's really intense.
Wow. Yeah, it is a bit scary sometimes when you think, well, these people know so much about us.
Totally. But you get like better ads. I have like mixed opinions on it. Sometimes I think, yes, totally creepy. I think we should probably own our data and be able to sell it back to these like businesses. That's like my dream. But at the end of the day, you're receiving information that is specific for you and it's more applicable for your life. So there's kind of pros and cons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess the great thing about this is that the information is constantly being collected. So it's extremely current.
Oh, it's immediately up to date. Most social listening platforms won't pull old data. So if someone has like an old user profile, like on Facebook, they haven't been on for 30 days, it won't even show up.
Right. So tell me about social listening platforms.
Yeah, there is a million. It's kind of like the new hot business to be in.
Yeah.
They're very expensive. But what they do is they work with the platforms. So Facebook and Twitter. Twitter is probably the best example because Twitter has something they call a fire hose. So Twitter will give these platforms, most of them if they sign the contracts to go through the spiel, unlimited access to all of the information. So you get every single piece of data set that you could possibly have going 5 years back.
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram don't really do that as much. They still give lots of information, as we all know, but you don't have access to certain things like Instagram stories. Like, that API is completely closed.
Right.
So smaller sets, but yeah. So the platforms just work with these agencies and these listening people to pull the data together.
So what kind of information would I find on a social listening platform?
Oh, it's insane. Tons. I love the ones that are more user-friendly, and if you're in the industry for a while, you'll start to figure out which ones they are, because there's some platforms that are just really ugly and they're not great to use. But you get tons of data. You can get anything from sentiment for how that person feels about your product specifically, keywords that they're using. You can also get other information about competitors, which is what a lot of people in the industry use this information for. So a platform that I was using a couple months ago was actually able to tell me whether or not they thought that another competitor was advertising and how much advertising spend was between those posts. So when you're doing this kind of research, you're finding information from competitors, but also individual users, which also gives you a leg up.
Yeah. So when you say they're expensive, like what does that mean in real dollars?
Oh my gosh. In my experience, they're anywhere from about $20,000 to about $300,000, $400,000 a year, depending on how they pull their data and what they offer and how much robust data there is. Sometimes they'll offer like hot secrets and they'll be like, this is a new trend that we're seeing.
Right.
Sometimes they don't offer any of that. Sometimes they only have access to one platform. A really, really great listening platform will actually be able to transcribe YouTube and be able to capture the words that someone is speaking in a YouTube video.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And so I guess fundamentally then what we're seeing is that the users of social listening platforms are large companies.
100%. Every large company is doing it. And most traditional, I would say, trend agencies that would have existed years ago have all kind of moved into this space of using social listening as their primary reason or primary way that they're pulling data to identify trends.
So I think what you're saying then is that if I am whatever brand and I am looking to develop a product, I can confirm the success of that product by understanding social media listening tools.
100%.
And you're seeing brands do that.
I think everyone's doing it now, especially big brands. A really good example is actually Glossier.
Mm-hmm.
Glossier's launch was done just through social listening, and their first group of 10 products or whatever that they launched was just based off of the needs that they identified on social for what customers were asking for.
Right. Wow. They, in the world of social media, Glossier is always a hot
Everyone
topic
gives
of
them
conversation.
hot topics. I have some like hot takes on Glossier, but that's fine.
Well, tell us.
I don't love... Okay, so Glossier gets really, really great feedback about their ambassador program and their community, which I think is really important. And I love the concept of community. My title is a community manager. I fully believe that community embodies like social media as well as like small granular things as well as your regular marketing. But they also do use, oh my gosh, what are they called? I had it written down. It's out of my brain.
Find the notes.
I know, they're in there. The affiliate codes. Okay, so I think an affiliate code is a great way to do really, really, really quick and robust like traffic to your site. You give out 50,000 people an affiliate code, and each of them gets a 10% bounce back every time one of their people in their audience uses that code.
Yeah.
But it's kind of not the same as actual like word of mouth.
Yeah.
It's not quite as loyal as I find like real word of mouth is.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to do like immediate sales, but I find affiliate codes don't have that long-term like longevity to like get people to fall in love with your brand, which is what you want.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess the incentive with the affiliate code is that me as an influencer feels as if I am getting attention from Glossier. I'm now like a...
Totally, you're cool.
Yeah, right. They're recognizing me.
And Glossier knows exactly what they're doing. They know that digital word of mouth is king. Like, they 100% know what they're doing. It's just, like, not my favorite thing. Yeah. It works really well for them, though, and it's definitely a great tactic.
Okay. So let's talk about qualitative and quantitative measurements. So can you tell us, like, what does that mean and how does that apply to social media?
Yeah, the way that I think about it the best, if you have taken a sociology course, like, I think that everyone in marketing or social should have taken a sociology or anthropology course at some point. But qualitative, I find, is where you're going to get your like pre-information before you start a campaign and when you're doing your planning. Quantitative is going to be your like afterwards reporting that like the finance guys care about. Qualitative, for example, is going to be things like moods, tone. That's where you're kind of going to identify if someone likes 15 different like blogs about food on Instagram. And you're getting those types for like what that person's routine is. And that's where I think the qualitative data comes in to be the most important, is understanding what that person's routine is or what that niche of someone's routine is.
Yeah.
Whereas quantitative is going to be more just like more straight numbers, like there's this many people in this area and we want to target them this way. Still really important and still valuable, but they're just slightly different. You'll use both of them hand in hand all of the time, but I find that your end reporting, you'll use the quantitative way more.
Right.
Just because other people don't understand it as much.
Yeah, so that's excellent. So I guess it's the difference between when we look at a Google review, it's like how many stars does a company have as quantitative, and then the comments is the qualitative perspective.
Yeah, and you can definitely pull that qualitative apart and say, oh, everyone hates this meal. A really interesting thing that I learned when I first did a breakdown on one of the channels that I ran is that my audience hated yellow. Hated it.
Oh, great. Here I'm wearing a yellow shirt.
Yeah, so specifically, they like yellow. They specifically would not click through on yellow posts.
This is with Lush? So
This was a couple years ago, so it's a little bit outdated, but it was a really interesting piece of data.
How did you work that out? How did you find they didn't like
I
yellow?
went through our past 6 months. It was a huge project. So you can do this on external channels as well. I've done this a few times if I'm trying to figure out something about a niche, where I'll go through 20 to 40 Instagram accounts for individuals in a niche that I know and look at what hashtags they're using. Literally the colors of their profiles, really, really interesting. The colors that they use and what filters they use. There was this study done in Sweden that talked about being able to identify whether or not someone had depression based off of what filter they used on Instagram.
Really?
Really interesting. So yeah, you can do a lot of really great stuff with qualitative data. And so with Lush, for that specific example, I did a backdraft of 6 months. I literally just pulled tops and bottoms from each month, organized them visually, and then I pulled all of the individual data, I hit the mic, out of them, and then just took that data and I was like, oh, okay, so all of the posts that are yellow and beige have a lower click-through rate.
Yeah.
They're driving less traffic to the website. What can we identify from that?
Right. And so was that the color of the text or the product itself?
It was everything.
Really?
Yeah, so if it was a yellow product, it wouldn't perform as well, but if it was also a different colored product on a yellow background, it wouldn't perform as well.
And so did that impact the product development team?
It didn't really impact the product development team, but it definitely impacted the way that we took our imagery.
Yeah.
So for the next year or so, if I was going on a photo shoot to do art direction, I would support the team and say if this product's yellow, let's make other things in the photo not as yellow. Yeah.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's such a great example of how understanding our customers through social media market research can impact, how you communicate and how you design and develop a campaign.
Yeah, and some listing platforms do exactly what I said for you.
Right.
Those are just some of the really more expensive ones.
Yeah. I bet they are. That's great. So what are some challenges that we see with market research? What are some caveats there when we get into social media market research?
Okay, so the biggest hot tip is that not everyone has equal access to the internet, and not everyone has equal access to social media.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not even equal access, but also the desire.
Right.
So I use Instagram very differently than my mom does.
Yeah.
So a data set that you pull for an older audience actually just might not be as developed and might not be as robust because they just use the platforms differently.
Yeah.
And then thinking for someone that actually does have different access, let's say you're trying to communicate a message to people in Ottawa, I don't know, this is the example I have in my head, about a shelter program that they have running in the winter. You're not going to be able to pull a lot of that info from social just because those people that might need that program might not have easy access to data plans on their phones.
Yeah, that's great. And so it's interesting, like you say, how your mom uses it. I use in class often my mom as an example.
Always a mom example. They're so easy.
It's fun to make fun of my mom and how she uses social media, what she cares about, how
Yes.
her hashtags are 3 sentences long. Why is everyone's mom does this?
I don't know why. I think okay, so this is my thing. I haven't posted a status on Facebook in years, and everyone will say Facebook is dead. And I think it's different. I think the generation of people that are under 60 are using Facebook differently than we did when I was 12.
Yeah.
I'm still using it for events. I'm still using it to log into every single app on my phone because I'm lazy.
Or Messenger.
Yeah, so the behavior is different as well, which is just something to consider. And I think that's important too with Twitter. A lot of companies use Twitter for customer service only.
Yeah.
So if you're pulling a data set from Twitter, it might be more negative because of that reason.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's good. Because the millennial or the Gen Z isn't using Twitter. They think it doesn't exist, really, fundamentally. But there's a massive community of people that are using it, especially for political and news and things like that. Right?
The academic community is huge on Twitter.
Yeah.
All academics have Twitter.
Yeah.
That's what they use to communicate.
I don't.
You're the only one. I'm just kidding.
It shows that I'm not actually an academic, I guess, doesn't it? Okay, that's great. So, there are some challenges. Are there any other challenges that you see with social media market research?
I think those are the biggest ones. Yeah, they pretty much encompass it.
So this is great. So, I think when we look at some of the stuff you've given us, we can learn that there are some challenges. It's not perfect. It's super current. It's really relevant, and we need to understand how far we can go with this because there are some obviously really sophisticated listening channels that can get us incredible information and allow us to make really smart strategic decisions when we're looking to develop a product or a campaign or something like that.
I think too it can be thought of a lot of the time that it's evil, but I also think if you're trying to put out a message that's value focused about, let's just say, voting, the election just happened, Like if you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I make someone care about voting?
Yeah.
You're going to be able to use that social media insights and that data to say like, okay, I know this person communicates this way on Facebook.
Yeah.
How do I get them to vote?
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That's perfect. Well, Sabine, I think this is really great and super helpful information we've gathered here today. I hope that you've enjoyed this time. I've learned a lot today.
So many things.
Thanks so much for being with me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.